Why is Amazon using the same interview questions for over 10 years? And why does the system still work today, even though these questions have largely been leaked? The first reason would be that in a behavioral interview, knowing the questions in advance does not mean you're going to pass that interview. In fact, I do have clients who know the questions and only the questions they're going to get asked during their job interviews, and still they find it difficult to give great answers. This stems primarily from the fact that in order to score well on a behavior, you'd have to prepare using a story bank and role play, which usually, it's a quite intense process. The second thing you should understand here is that while questions have largely remained the same in Amazon interviews, the expectations with respect to your answers did evolve. Two examples: if you look at an answer from 5 years ago and compare it to the expectations today, you'll notice it's night and day in terms of the quality there. Also, another notable example is the introduction of AI, which most candidates will think that's an advantage for them. Well, in reality, the AI had made it very easy for anyone to understand where the bar is in terms of expectations in job interviews, for example, with the star answers, which basically means for an Amazon interviewer, they would now raise the bar because everyone would have that baseline scenario of giving great star answers. So now the expectation in Amazon interviews, you give extended star answers, maybe add a few learnings, maybe dramatize a little bit, and these sort of things. So the bar has been raised in the answers, so why would they change the questions? The third reason why the system is still so efficient is because even though the questions and the behaviors, the leadership principles are the same, they can slightly reward those questions to make them sound less intuitive. Most notable example would be, tell me about the time when you failed. What if I ask you, have you had any major shortcomings as of recently? And unless you have some listening skills, I can tell you most candidates would answer that shortcomings questions quite differently. So what's in for you here? Well, it pays off to have great listening skills in these Amazon interviews and to understand what's the key behavior that they're interested in from the questions you're asked and be able to link that core behavior with your best story. So therefore, ideally, you should answer with your best story on the behavior, not necessarily on the question you're getting asked. Okay? And this is why listening skills do pay off. The fourth reason why this system is still so efficient is because even though the Amazon interview question bank has largely been leaked, they are quite a few questions. Okay, so around 70 questions in total. And even though you don't have to prepare all the leadership principles, you can eliminate some of them. Even if you only had 50 questions to prepare, that's still quite a bit of work. In my experience, for candidates who cannot interview well, this might take weeks and even months. The most I've had was 1 year. For qualified candidates, it's still quite a job. I mean, qualified in the sense that you can interview well. It's still quite a job to go through all those questions and to see, maybe role play, maybe build a little bit of a story bank and these sort of things. Or, you could pay someone to prepare for your job interview, which can get quite expensive. You have to pay for a coaching session every day up until your job interview, which is, what I found that works best. So even though it's an old system, even though everyone knows the questions in advance, this is a large approach, a systematic approach, which requires a lot of effort to most candidates. And the fifth reason I wanted to share with you here, something that many candidates would greatly benefit from if you understand how these behavioral interviews work, is that Amazon knows when the system would no longer work for them. And one of the most efficient ways they would know this is when candidates, unqualified candidates, would be able to exploit the system, their behavioral interviews, and negotiate better offers with them. Right? So this is what the best candidates in Amazon and in any job interview do. They negotiate better job offers. And if Amazon would notice that, hey, this candidate isn't as skilled, but they tricked our behavioral interviews and they negotiate a better offer as a result of that, they would be forced to change this. But what happens is that still most candidates still think in terms of barely passing an Amazon interview when compared to thriving in these behavioral interviews, which is an approach that I would highly recommend if you prepare for one. So I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.